Alright, welcome to the Scrum and Agile presentation. My name is Michael Rollins, and I wasn't able to find a partner for this project, so I'll be presenting this on my own. Now, if we look at this Dilbert comic, it really illustrates to me just how misunderstood Agile can sometimes be. Here we can see that the boss has heard about Agile, and he's going to implement it because, wow, amazingly, it's going to produce twice as much work without hiring anybody else. Which isn't the case. It's not a silver bullet. It's not the end-all be-all, but it's definitely a good product. So let's look a little bit further into Scrum and Agile. First, let's talk about the Agile methodology. So what is it exactly? Well, actually, it's not a methodology at all. It's a set of systems and beliefs that allow teams to work together and maintain a unified vision for the product development. Agile is not a set standard or decision maker. It actually allows teams to make decisions that are going to help them along the way. Now, part of the misconception that Agile is a methodology is for pictures like this. This is actually Agile mixed with another methodology. And so people see that, they see the name, and they think, oh, it's an Agile methodology. Well, it's not quite that, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper in there. First, let's talk about what Agile can do for you. Now, by keeping the values in constant view with your team, you're able to choose and adjust the tools and methods that you use and maintain the common foundation during the software development process, which is really nice. Agile, by virtue of its flexibility and commitment to excellence, encourages its users, or the teams that are using it, to constantly evaluate the tools that they're using and to seek out new ones. This is really nice because sometimes tools become outdated. Maybe there's a better one that your team didn't know about. With Agile as your foundation, it's constantly encouraging you to look for those things or even to better utilize the tools you have. So now let's look at Scrum. Let's talk about what it is, because it is a methodology. Now it's a very flexible one because it gives the team just a basic structure for how to run, which is why it fits so well with Agile. Here we can see one of the biggest pluses is the roles that the Scrum offers. The roles that the Scrum offers are different team members have different assigned roles. There's a product owner, Scrum Master, stakeholders. It really spells it out so that you know exactly where everyone falls in this lineup. Now, what can Scrum do for you? This picture here is just a very basic idea of what Scrum typically looks like. It's not always the case because it is different. And so if we go into it a little bit more, we see that Scrum gives teams measurable goals and milestones that can be used to gauge where a project is, which is huge because sometimes it's really, really hard to tell how far along your project is. The other nice thing is that because of the team roles in the assignments, you'll have what management needs when it says, hey, who's responsible for this? Or if a team member says, hey, I need this done, who's got that role? You know exactly to go to because of the Scrum, who to go to because of the Scrum process. Now, if you're looking to implement Agile and Scrum, you really got to ask, how do you do it? And, in the end, you just got to do it. What are you waiting for? Just go for it. You got to start working towards it. Say, hey, this is the avenue we're going to go. We're going to start researching it, and we're going to implement it. Really, in the end, that's the best way to go about it. Now, there are some recommended steps that I've read about and ones that I've found, and these are a few of them. I'd start by studying the Agile Manifesto. That's where I started, and since it's the backbone of Agile, it's really, really important to understand the expectations and the quality that's in there, what it expects of the people that are using this. Next, I'd study Scrum. There, I found multiple descriptions. A lot of them are similar, but they do change. And so you want to study it from multiple sources. It's very, very important to make sure that you have a good understanding of what Scrum is and how it works. So you know what stand-ups are, you know what a project manager does, you know what Scrum Master does, you know what the individual contributors do. And it makes a huge difference when it comes down to big questions about a product. Next, you got to look and say, okay, now that we know what the Agile Manifesto is and we know what Scrum is this what our team needs? Is this going to be the best option? I would often say yes, but it's not always going to be the case. So you got to discuss it with management and your team and see if this is really the route you want to go. Now, if it is, make sure everybody's on board. If you're the only one or if upper management is delegating this down, it's going to be a lot harder to implement Scrum and to make sure that people are following the Agile beliefs and standards. Now, if this isn't going to work out, then pick something else. But for the purposes of this presentation, we're just going to assume that you've gone ahead and said, hey, we're going to do it. So what's the next step? Well, once you've decided to do it, decide how you're going to communicate as a team. I think that's invaluable. Knowing that, hey, we're going to use Slack, or hey, we're going to use email and Skype. We're going to talk to our customers this way. We're going to keep documentation here. That's so huge. When I did a project in one of my classes, we started out using Slack, and it was great, but the team decided that we wanted to keep the documentation on the channel as well as the chat. And so we decided to go with the Microsoft Messenger because it allowed you to store documentation and to message people in the same app. So that really was a big difference for us. Next, you got to decide how and when you're going to meet with your customers. That is so crucial because if you walk into a customer meeting for the very first time and you don't know, they're going to be trying to negotiate with you, and it can be really, really difficult to manage multiple customers who all want to meet different ways. So once you have that solidified, then you know, hey, this is how we typically do it. If we need to adjust for one of our customers a little bit, we can, but for the most part, this is how we meet with you. This is what we talk about. So I think that's really important. After that, got to get a vision of your product. So you know you're going to use Scrum and Agile. You know some of the basics. Now you need a vision. If your product doesn't have a vision, then you might as well just not even start because a lot of those products fail or they don't do so well. Now once you've decided on your vision, next thing is the roadmaps. You know, let's say that I decide I want to go to France in the next month and I want to visit and tour the Louvre and go to the Eiffel Tower, do all these different things in Europe. Well, if I walk out my door tomorrow and say, well, I'm going to France, see you later, but I don't have any idea of how I'm going to get there, probably not going to make it in the next month. You got to know what avenues you're going to try and take. What are the best routes? Should I drive part of the way? Should I fly the entire way? Whatever it may be. Once you've developed those roadmaps, now it's time to divide the project up into responsibilities and assigned roles. Because then you can say, well, we know that so-and-so is in charge of this aspect of the roadmap, so I have a question, let's go talk to them. Or we say, hey, we need you to monitor and be our Scrum Master for our stand-ups, and have them doing it right off the bat. That way they get comfortable with the role, and also they know exactly who to talk to and when to talk to them. Now, for me personally, this is my belief that once you've decided to go with Scrum and Agile, never ever give up. Never say, hey, this is too crazy, we don't know enough. You know, we're going to go with a completely different methodology. Once you've decided to go down this road, stick with it, because you'll be amazed at how much good this can do a project and how flexible it is because of the belief systems behind the Agile method. And the structure that's in Scrum is perfect, at least in my experience, because it's rigid but only to the point of roles and assignments and making sure that you're following up and have goals. After that, it allows your team to work the way they need to, whether that be individually or as a group. So that's it for my presentation. If you have any more questions or anything like that, I would just go back to this slide here and look at number 2. Study the Scrum descriptions or the Agile descriptions from multiple sources. That way you're going to become an expert and you're going to be able to share this with other people.